part of it is the argument that he won't come up with, that this is motivated by envy and by hate, which are the driving engines of socialism and fascism and all the various totalitarian economic schemes that seem to face us in this country these days, so unfortunately. But it's just in public. He's going to say, we decide that these guys make too much. When you're in Washington, you sometimes hear them say that really nobody in the private sector should make any more than a government official. And remember back when they said that no Bush should make more than President Obama, although I don't think they included the cost of a palace and a 747 and all the rest of the things that,
right,
and an army that Obama has. But it's just further envy, further hate, and they want to destroy the private sector. They want to control and run the private sector. And this, they feel, from polling, I guess, unfortunately appeals to the envious side of their own base. And this is what they want to do. They want to take over, and they want to use these kinds of arguments in order to do so. Very disturbing.
I fully agree with you. I agree on its level of disturbance. I agree it's motivated by hatred and fear, and I agree that their goal is some form of egalitarianism. They would probably call it income equality, but they basically want to take from those that have and give to those that don't. The American experiment, Tom Woods, has always been that we are equal at the starting line, not at the finish line, and that it's up to your own courage and skill and talent and hard work and faith and all those things that cause and induce people to get ahead, where you end up at the finish line. This government doesn't understand that.
No, but in fact, we can understand why governments always claim that they want to bring about equality, because it's an impossible goal. Therefore, it can never be reached, and therefore the government will always be able to justify acquiring more power in order to continue on its fruitless attempt to achieve an unachievable goal. I mean, Robert Nozick, the great American political philosopher, used to give the example of what would happen if we all started off at the same material level, but then we had somebody like Wilt Chamberlain, who's a great basketball player. We all want to go watch him. Well, for the privilege of going to watch him, we'd all pay. We'd all basically pay, and the money would eventually get to him. And so immediately we would destroy equality because he would be richer than the rest of us. So what's he supposed to do? Return all the money back to us so that we can start all over again? The thing can't be done, and that's why governments love it.
This is really to both of you now, and I'm happy to encourage the three of us to chat at the same time. But I was appalled this morning when I read a transcript of testimony in the Chrysler bankruptcy hearing yesterday, in which a federal judge took testimony from Chrysler executives who were demonstrating the reasons why they wanted to spend $134 million of their own dollars on 30-second advertising spots on national television, because they need to keep the Chrysler brand out there, and they're worried that people won't understand the difference between bankruptcy where you're still in possession of your business versus bankruptcy when you go out of business. And the federal judge was agreeing with these Chrysler executives that they should be able to spend the money, when suddenly, out of nowhere, there came a decree from some group that Steve Ratner runs in Washington, D.C., in the Treasury Department, that says, we're only going to let you spend half the $134 million on advertising. Question: I thought this president and his administration, Lew and Tom, were not interested in becoming automobile manufacturers. Question: I thought they were interested in just giving Chrysler a little boost along. Am I naive, or do these guys want to micromanage whatever they can get their hands on?
Well, I think when we're dealing with the government, and that's true of previous administrations as well as the Obama administration, we can assume that virtually everything they say is a lie. So when they say they don't want to micromanage, of course they want to micromanage. They want to be in charge of salaries. They want to be in charge of advertising. They want to be in charge of who gets what job. And, of course, there be politically connected people like Mr. Ratner, who's been made the czar of the automobile industry. And I think the Obama administration, following the footsteps of others, is going to give us czars for all kinds of areas of American life. They're going to be in control of us, and they'd like us, the people, to have very little say over our lives or our property.
Tom?
I think anytime they argue that they really are doing such and such only as a last resort, and they're just hating every minute of it, and they'll be happy to relinquish this power anytime in the future. I mean, nobody can possibly believe this. This is the way these people operate. So I agree with Lew that you got to believe the opposite of what they say. It's like you got to do the opposite with your money of whatever CNBC is recommending. It's just one of these rules of thumb that we acquire.
Yeah, except that CNBC's recommendations can be laughed at, but the federal government's edicts, if you are Chrysler, or if you are an executive of a bank that didn't take TARP, but they've got you in their crosshairs, are really something that you can't laugh at and you can't ignore. I'm waiting for somebody to challenge this stuff just on basic due process notions, on the idea that we didn't do anything wrong and they can't take our property away from us without compensating us for it. Tom, I'm waiting for some federal judge to be able to rule on that.
Yeah, look, I think it'd be a fantastic thing to watch, to see some private actor actually stand up and force these people to acknowledge that they haven't got a legal leg to stand on. They're making the stuff up as they go along. They've been ignoring the Constitution for decades. If somebody you'd have an absolutely overwhelming case. You'd probably still lose under the current system, but something like that would be such a welcome educational tool to make at least some of the people who are still asleep at the wheel here in this country realize just how stark the situation that we face is, that how utterly lawless it is at the core.
I thought of the two of you and of a lot of the people watching and listening to us now yesterday when I had the following experience. I had to go from New York to Philadelphia, and the most efficient way to do it is to take the Acela, the government-owned Amtrak high-speed train that gets you there in about an hour. And I arrived at Penn Station in New York City to get my ticket, for which I had a reservation. And I was about the 12th or 13th person on line. At the head of the line were 5 ticket booths, 4 of which had signs in front of them that said closed, and 1 of which had a ticket clerk behind it. And when the ticket clerk that was working sold the ticket to the customer in front of you, she pressed a button and a light went on telling you could leave the line and approach her. If you approached her before she pressed the button, she sent you back to the line. Now, when I saw this happen to about 2 or 3 people in front of me, I exploded and said to the others on the line, for gosh sakes, we own this train line. These people work for us. She's treating us like we're kindergartners in East Germany 30 years ago. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I got to get this ticket. I got to be on this 5 o'clock train or I'm going to miss my appointment in Philly. I better obey like a good little boy and not go up to that ticket clerk until she presses the button. When I say here and on the radio and on the Fox News channel and the Business Network, you want to see how the government runs a business, look at the post office or Amtrak. This is what I'm talking about. You can't make this stuff up, Lew.
Well, Ron Paul is a pretty unusual judge. Most people who go into government work do it because they want to dominate others. I mean, they have a power lust.
Like this clerk yesterday.
Well, what St. Augustine called the libido dominandi. This is their life. They love it. They love dominating others. So it's her attitude. It's Mr. Ratner's attitude. It's Mr. Obama's attitude. This is why you don't want government this size, or government even worse, growing, because this is the universal attitude, or the virtually universal attitude, among all the people in the federal, the state, and the local government. They feel they've got the guns, and they can tell you what to do. And, of course, increasingly in this country, they can tell us what to do.
Where are we headed, Tom? You know, I get hundreds of emails a day from well-intended people who did not vote for John McCain and did not vote for Barack Obama, who are not only frustrated but are genuinely fearful at what's happening. The three of us are so highly critical of what the Obama administration and the Congress are doing to the Constitution. We were equally as critical of what the Republican Congress and the Bush administration did to the Constitution at the time. So we have carte blanche to criticize government in general as we do, but how terrifying is this, Tom?
Well, I mean, the direction that this could go in and how quickly events could move is very hard to say, particularly because the economic crisis, which the same bozos who didn't see it coming are telling us is almost over, it could get much worse, and we all know the political and social ramifications of that, and they may want to clamp down on that. I mean, it's very, very hard to say where it could go, but one good thing to see is that there is a growth of a third sector in politics, that is to say, and I don't even mean to say in politics, in American society,
right,